Brazwell here with KiMISTRY, and as you know, we have already announced that this year we are embarking upon a new thing called the Chosen Family Reunion. This is going to be an intensive 3-day retreat. We are flying in a phenomenal clinician who also blends in somatics with his work to help us dig in and dive into these deeper crevices. Y'all, it's the stuff we don't always want to talk about, but that's what we're going to be digging into. And one of the folks who will be joining us on our excursion into the depths of the unknown is my friend, my sister friend, and fellow coach, Mikka Abbington. In her coaching space, she is Renee, which I thought was very sophisticated.
Fancy.
Right. But the reason why I wanted to bring Mikka on here for us to have a quick conversation is because Mikka and I, though we go way back, one of the things we didn't realize until we reconnected was we were doing something on our own that we're actually going to be doing, and we're going to be leading folks in this process during the Chosen Family Reunion. And that is Mikka and I were doing some inner child healing. And so, Mikka, I wanted to ask you, because I know what it felt like for me. We both kind of had our own ways of dealing with our stuff, right? Whether it was numbing, anger, a little bit of all of the things. What was it that pushed you into finally saying, I need to do this work? But more importantly, what does it feel like for you? How would you describe what it feels like to do the work, and then what you think the results are of doing the inner child work?
I will say I don't even know that I knew I needed to do the work. And I had kids. I had some twins that were tugging at pieces of me that I don't know I was connected to, which kind of created this, oh no, I'm losing myself as a mom. Right?
Yes.
And I went to therapy and it was like, no, you're really not. You've got some inner child stuff that you need to figure out. Like, oh, because that's not what I came here for.
Right. And then you're like, shut your mouth because you don't know me like that.
Right. Like, well, since we're here, let's talk about it. Right. Yeah. So I don't know that I knew I needed to do the work, but through navigating motherhood is like, ooh, girl, you got a child in here trying to raise these twins. How's that going to work?
Yes.
So figured that out and then did the work. And I will say, when you ask me, how did it feel? One of the things I found out in my inner child work is I don't know how to feel. So I had to take words from a sheet of paper. And it's like, how are you feeling? Because it's like, I'm mad, pissed, frustrated, because that's all I know. Like, that's it. All of that. Right. But going through the work, I will say I felt vulnerable. I felt exposed. I felt there were some times where I felt invigorated because it's like, ooh, now I can put a name to this thing.
And right? Isn't that a whole thing? And I apologize for interrupting, but that's a whole thing when you're just like, oh, that's a thing? Like that there's a name for that, which means then if I know what it is and I can identify it and it's a problem or a challenge, then that means there's probably a solution.
That part. It was beautiful. I'll say it was a beautiful experience because it's like, oh, so I'm not a bitch. Got it. So there's some things that happened that created these spaces that I sat in. And not only am I now aware, but I get to choose, is this something I want to change or not? Right? Because it's like, oh, you're going to therapy, something's wrong. No, I'm getting some awarenesses. I'm learning more about myself. And now I know, oh, this is how you show up. I can continue to choose that way or do something different. And it's my choice, right? Yeah. So I would say it felt empowering at times. And then coming to the other side of it, you already couldn't tell me nothing. But I mean, like right now, just don't. Yeah. Just don't. Like I'm on, like, it's like this awareness is just, I am clearer about who I am, why I am, and how I am. Right. And that just shows up first in motherhood, because I was drowning in that. But it's like, oh, okay, I can be something outside of a mother and be all these other things and be them authentically.
Yes.
Because that's the other thing, right? Because I was hiding behind a mask at times. But I can be me authentically and just really walk in that glow, if you will. So I would say the other side of it is amazing. I mean, and there are days when it's like, ooh, today hurts.
Yes.
But I can say that. Before it was just, today I'm mad. No, today
and even the word that you use, right? Like hurt. And a lot of times what we feel is hurt. And then if we don't get that addressed, it turns into anger.
That part.
right? But if we know it's hurt, then it doesn't have to turn into anger.
Yeah.
And I'll just say too, and I know we said we were just taking a couple minutes. I'll say too, it made all the difference in the world for me, because where you kind of went to an anger place, I went to numb.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can numb like nobody's business, and I'm so good at it. And for me, it was an awakening of like, I don't want to be numb, because while I didn't feel things, I trained myself to not feel painful things. I still felt them, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that also meant that things that were very joyful, I couldn't feel them either.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to not feel anything anymore. And so, not unlike you, it kind of rips the scab open, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
all these things, right? And then you start excavating feelings. And I think one of the things that's shocking about inner child work is like the stuff that you felt when you were like 8 and 12 and 14, it's still there. It didn't go anywhere. You just kind of like put some other
stuff on top of it. Yep.
Mm-hmm. But what was beautiful is I remember where I was standing in my house when we're having the conversation. I'm like, wait a minute, you went through what? Like we were literally sitting in class, as 16, 17-year-olds dealing with horrendous things. And we never spoke of them. We didn't tell adults. We didn't tell each other. We didn't tell our peer circles. It's like, if you weren't in the house with me going through this stuff,
you had no idea.
And not until we were grown adults with kids, all kinds of stuff, we were like, now I'm dealing with it. And I cannot express there was one part of me that was kind of looking at you like, I didn't even say nothing, but I didn't either, right? So I can't even be mad at you. But I think the other part of it was, I feel a little bit better knowing I'm not crazy. I'm not alone.
That part.
And that although I haven't trained myself, nor have you, of being a person where just like, hey, I'm really messy and uncomfortable, and I'd like to bring someone in my mess and talk about it today.
Right.
Like we're still working through that.
Yes.
But it did mean that on days, if you caught me or if I caught you, and it's like, are you really okay? Like I knew that this is a person, right, who is now transitioned, not just as a friend, but in a chosen family space, where it's just like, I can share this with you because I trust you with it.
It's a safe place.
And that made, and still makes, all the difference in the world. So one, I just want to just thank you. Thank you for just sticking with me. We've been doing this for a long time. Yeah. Math is scary about how many years ago we graduated from high school. We won't do that right now. However, I implore those who are, even if you stayed long enough to see a piece of this conversation, do let it sit on you. If you needed a sign about, is it time to work on this inner child stuff, please take this as the sign to say yes, because not just you need you, but some people who you care about need you, and they need you to be okay. And if you're not, you have a right. You're worthy of being okay. And Mikka knows, because she's heard some of the insight about what we're planning on doing at this chosen family reunion.
Oh, yes.
And I think that if you would like to delve into this, but you want to do it in a space, to the word Mikka used, that will be safer, that's going to be allowing you to be braver and more courageous, to not have to do it by yourself, please do consider registering for this chosen family reunion. There are still some spots left, and we would love to be in fellowship with you and to be part of your chosen family, to help you work through this so we can navigate it together.